And I don't think that Cantor Cohn needs much of an introduction. You all know him as our High Holiday Cantor and as our guest Cantor on a monthly basis. And I see people clapping. Yes, we love his ruach and his voice. And now we're going to get to hear his thoughts on Bob Dylan's music and trends, I guess, themes of Judaism and Bob Dylan's music. So we are just absolutely delighted to see you. Welcome.
Thank you, Kathleen. And again, welcome to my family and friends who are joining from all over North America. So I'm going to be, well, first of all, I want to ask everybody to make sure you're muted, except for me right now. And then if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can put them in the chat box and I'll try to get to them before we finish. Now, I'll be playing and sharing some YouTube videos throughout the presentation. So the screen share may take a few seconds, so I want to apologize in advance and thank you for your patience because it's not an instantaneous connection, but I'll do my best. And also be sure to let me know in the chat if there's a problem with the sound, either from me or from the videos. So first, a brief word of why I've chosen this topic for my first JETI lecture. I've been an avid Bob Dylan fan since I was about 11 years old. Thanks to my older brother Mark, who's here with us this evening, and his influence, I began listening to Dylan's Bringing It All Back Home album. Excuse me. While I had already been acquainted with his songs that had been recorded by others, such as Peter, Paul, and Mary, and the Byrds, I was intrigued by this off-putting voice singing strange poetry that to this day I can't say I fully understand. Imagine an 11-year-old trying to wrap his head around it. In any case, I continued to follow this man's career through many ups and downs, and now would like to share with you some of his songs that have Jewish connections through use of scripture, tefillah, and Kabbalah in honor of the artist's upcoming 80th birthday later this year. Robert Allen Zimmerman was born in Duluth, Minnesota on May 24, 1941, the grandson of Lithuanian and Ukrainian Jewish immigrants. At age 6, his family moved 75 miles away to Hibbing, hardly a hotbed of Judaism. But Bobby was no stranger to the Bible, Jewish liturgy, and tradition in his early years. He was raised in a moderately observant and kosher home and attended a Zionist camp during the summers of his youth. By the time he was 20, 60 years ago, he was already ensconced in the thriving folk music culture of Greenwich Village, New York. He changed his last name to Dylan for no clear reason except a possible association with the poet Dylan Thomas, and soon became renowned for his ragged-voiced interpretations of folk and blues songs, and then, of course, his own compositions. While not usually considered a Jewish musician by traditional standards, a close examination of the lyrics of many of his compositions throughout his 60-year career, and still going strong, Cantor, reveal a huge number of references to various parts of the Tanakh, the Siddur, Kabbalah, and many other theologies as well. He has been called a mystic, a prophet, and undoubtedly one of the greatest American poets of his time, leading to his Nobel Prize in Literature in 2016.
Must a man walk down before they call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand?
Most of you likely heard this playing from your radios and TVs in 1963. The folk trio, or some would say pop trio, Peter, Paul, and Mary, interpreted many of Dylan's songs throughout the 60s, making them more palatable to a wider audience. Blowin' in the Wind was Dylan's first well-known original song. Written in 1962 during the height of the era of racial tensions and freedom marches in the U.S., this song became a sort of theme song for demonstrations against racial injustice and the Vietnam War a few years later. Close examination of the lyrics, as pointed out in Seth Rogovoy's book, Bob Dylan, Prophet, Mystic, Poet, reveals a reference to the prophet Ezekiel, chapter 12, verse 2. Quote, "They have eyes to see, but see not, ears to hear, but hear not, for they are a rebellious breed." End quote. As well as to the dove that Noah sent out after the floodwaters receded. Even the simple refrain, "The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind," could be a reference to Ruach Elohim, the Spirit of God, keeping in mind that the Hebrew word Ruach can be translated as spirit, breath, or wind. Rogovoy writes, quote, "It is a litany of unanswerable questions. What could be more Jewish?" End quote. Let's watch one of Dylan's own renditions of this song and see if you don't agree that it is more urgent and poignant.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonball fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he really sees the sky? How many years must the one person have before he can hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Were you able to see the video as well as hear it?
Yes,
Good.
Cantor.
Oh, great, thanks. Because most of these I'm just going to play the sound while I display the lyrics, but that one had the lyrics in there. So, in chapter 7 of the book Amos, the prophet Amos states, quote, "I'm not a prophet, nor am I a son of a prophet." Dylan restated and elaborated on that statement in the song Long Time Gone, one of his lesser-known songs from his early years. It sounds like an autobiography, but he often took great liberties with his life story in both song and interviews. I've chosen this recording by Odetta, a great artist of the folk era, an excellent Dylan interpreter. So we need to stop that. Going to share advanced. Only share.
My parents raised me tenderly, I was their only one. My mind got mixed with rambling when I was all so young. I left my home the first time when I was 12 and 1. And I'm a long time in a coming, more, I'll be a long time gone. I remember when I was rambling around the carnival trains. Different towns, different people, somehow they're all the same. I remember children's faces best, I remember traveling on. And I'm a long time in a coming, I'll be a long time gone. Many times by the highway side I tried to flag a ride. With bloodshot eyes and gritting teeth, I watched the cars roll by. I banged my head against the wind and shoved it at a stone. And I'm a long time in a coming, and I'll be a long time gone. You might see me on your crossroads when I am passing through. Remember me how you wish to as I'm drifting from your view. I ain't got time to think about it, I got too much to get done. Well, I'm a long time in a coming, and I'll be a long time gone. If I can't help somebody with a word or a song, I can't show somebody they are traveling wrong. But I know I ain't no prophet, and I ain't no prophet's son. I'm just a long time in a coming, and I'll be a long time gone. So you can have your beauty, it's skin deep and it only lies. And you can have your youth, it rots before your eyes. Just give to me my gravestone with it clearly carved upon. And there's a long time in a coming, and I'll be a long time gone.
Let me see. Okay. I just want to stop that screen share. Okay. So that one, I hope you heard the music and saw the lyrics.
Yes.
Good. Okay, thanks. All right. On his third album, The Times They Are A-Changin', released in 1964, Dylan presented a vision of the end of days, like so many of our biblical prophets. When the Ship Comes In uses several scriptural references, including the splitting of the Sea of Reeds and the story of David and Goliath, to present Dylan's image of the apocalypse. This time I'm presenting Peter, Paul, and Mary's rendition because of their beautiful harmonies and their passionate interpretation of the lyrics.
My parents raised
The time will come up when the wind will stop and the breeze will cease to be breathing. Like a stillness in the wind, for the hurricane begins, the hour that the ship comes in. Oh, the seas will split and the ship will hit, and the sand on the shoreline will be shaken, and the tide will sound and the waves will pound, and the morning will be breaking. Oh, the fishes swim out of the path, and the seagulls, they'll be smiling, and the rocks on the sand will proudly stand the hour that the ship comes in. And the words that are used for to get the ship confused will not be understood as they're spoken, for the chains of the sea will have busted in the night and be buried on the bottom of the ocean. Oh, a song will lift as the mainsail shifts and the boat drifts on to the shoreline, and the sun will respect every face on the deck the hour that the ship comes in. And the sands will roll out a carpet of gold for your weary toes to be a-touching, and the ship's wise men will remind you once again that the whole wide world is watching. Oh, the boats will rise with a sleeping in their eyes, and they'll jerk from their beds and think they're dreaming, but they'll pinch themselves and squeal, and they'll know that it's for real the hour that the ship comes in. And they'll raise their hands saying we'll meet all your demands, but we'll shout from the bow your days are numbered, and like Pharaoh's tribe they'll be drowned in the tide, and like Goliath they'll be
Throughout his career, Bob Dylan has constantly redefined himself. He never felt comfortable with the label spokesman of a generation, as so many applied to him. After he had achieved success and notoriety as a writer and singer of folksy protest songs, his musical style reverted to the electrified rock and roll that he played in Hibbing as a teenager. At the same time, his poetry became enigmatic and sometimes darker, often infused with biting humor, as exemplified by such songs as Like a Rolling Stone, Positively 4th Street, and many others. Dylan's first released album after his serious 1966 motorcycle accident, entitled John Wesley Harding from 1968, contained a few songs with biblical and prophetic allusions. The most famous was All Along the Watchtower. On its most basic level, it is a restructuring of chapter 21 of Isaiah, containing a vision of riders approaching to foretell the fall of Babylon, and a call for watchmen in towers in the night. Some commentators point to this song as Dylan's first foray into Christianity, pointing out that the joker is the devil and the thief is Jesus. But the poet would not embrace that religion for another 10 years. Most people are familiar with Jimi Hendrix's hit version, and it has been covered by countless artists. But I'm choosing to give you my own take on the song. There must be some kind of way out of here, said the joker to the thief. There's too much confusion, I can't get no relief. Businessmen, they drink my wine, plowmen dig my earth. None of them along the line know what any of is worth. No reason to get excited, the thief he kindly spoke. There are many here among us who feel that life is but a joke. But you and I have been through that. my dog falsely now. The hour's getting late. All along the watchtower, princes kept the view, while the women came and went, barefoot servants too. Outside in the distance, a wildcat did growl. Two riders were approaching, the wind began to howl. Not doing so well with the harmonica tonight. Ah. 2 years later, Bob released the album New Morning, which showcased a fresh new sound to his voice and more introspective lyrics. The album opens with a song that could easily be a simple love song, but some have seen it as a love song to God, in the same way that the biblical Song of Songs can be either love poetry between two people or a song celebrating the love between God and Bnei Israel. This was a big hit for Olivia Newton-John, as well as for Dylan's friend George Harrison, but I'd like to once again offer my own interpretation. Requires a change of instruments. If not for you, babe, I couldn't find the door, couldn't even see the floor. I'd be sad and blue if not for you. If not for you, babe, I lay awake all night, wait for the morning light to shine on through, but it would not be new if not for you. If not for you, my sky would fall, rain would gather too. If not for you, I'd be nowhere at all. I'd be lost if not for you, and you know it's true. If not for you, babe, I'd lay awake all night, wait for the morning light to shine on through, and anyway it would not be new if not for you. If not for you, if not for you. As you can see, both some of our YouTube artists and I are cutting these songs a little shorter in the interest of time. On the same album, Mr. Dylan offers an unabashed prayer of sorts, entitled Father of Night. He is obviously addressing God, but with neither entreaty nor praise, as most of our prayers are, in spite of the non-grammatical final line. What is his point? Listen and decide for yourself. Unfortunately, the video of Bob singing it himself is unavailable, but this guy I found on YouTube, is an amateur, I think, does a great job of imitating Dylan's playing and singing.
Father of night, Father of day, Father who taketh the darkness away, Father who teacheth the bird to fly, builder of rainbows up in the sky, Father of loneliness and pain, Father of love and Father of rain. Father of day, Father of night, Father of black, Father of white, Father who mountains to high, shapeth the clouds up in the sky, Father of time, Father of dreams, Father who turneth the rivers and streams. Father of grain, Father of wheat, Father of cold, Father of heat, Father of air and Father of trees, who dwells in our hearts and our memories. Father of minutes, Father of days, Father of whom we most solemnly praise.
Three years later, in 1973, Dylan released an album entitled Planet Waves that contained not one but two versions of the same song, with lyrics that reflect the parental blessing that we give our children on Shabbat and on other occasions. Forever Young is a beautiful prayer that we wish for all children. I've had the honor of singing this at several britot and baby namings, including for my own children. And I hope you enjoy my rendition of it now. May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars, climb on every rung, and may you stay forever young. May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth and see the light surrounding you. May you always be courageous, stand upright and be strong, and may you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young. May your hands always be busy. May your feet always be swift. May you have a strong foundation when the winds of change shift. May your heart always be joyful. May your song always be sung, and may you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. In the late 70s, Bob shook his fan base by releasing an album that actually had Christian references, while his concerts were infused with gospel music and singers. There was no denying his affinity for Christianity in those few years, but on closer examination, several of these songs are merely restatements of his belief in God, such as the following song, "Gotta Serve Somebody." I couldn't resist including a video by a couple of real gospel singers, Mavis Staples and Johnny Lang, from the Points of Light tribute event on March 21st, 2011. They don't sing all of the lyrics in the interest of time, but you'll certainly get the idea. And let's see, we got to share this one.
Mavis Staples and Johnny Lang.
You may be an ambassador, a queen of a queen. You may like to gamble, you might like to dance. You might be the heavyweight champion of the world. You might be a socialite with a long string of pearls, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Oh yeah, you got to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. Oh yeah. You might be a rock and roll addict, prancing on the stage. You might have had drugs or drug a man, women in a cage. You might be a businessman or some high degree thief. They might call you doctor or they might call you chief, but you gotta serve somebody. Yes, you gotta serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil, maybe the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. You may be a preacher with his spiritual pride. You may be a city councilman taking bribes on the side. You may be a barber, know how to cut a hair. Maybe on a favor, somebody there, you gotta serve somebody. Oh yeah, you got to serve somebody. But you're gonna have to serve somebody.
I wish I had time to play that entire video because the gospel choir really comes through loud and strong. On Dylan's 1981 album, Shot of Love, it became apparent that his theology was again becoming more universalistic, if not more authentically Jewish. funny because a lot of people consider this the third of his 3 Christian albums, but I don't see it. I think there's much more, as I said, universal attitude in the album. This beautiful prayer song fits perfectly in the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of repentance, as he examines his life, prepares for confession, and proclaims God's mark on the world in every grain of sand. In the time of my confession, in the hour of my deepest need, when the pool of tears beneath my feet flood every newborn seed, there's a dying voice within me, reaching out somewhere, toiling in the danger and in the morals of despair. Don't have the inclination to look back on any mistake. Like Cain, I now behold this chain of events that I must break. In the fury of the moment, I can see the Master's hand. Every leaf that trembles in every grain of sand. Oh, the flowers of indulgence and the weeds of yesteryear, like criminals, they have choked the breath of conscience and good cheer. The sun beat down upon the steps of time to light the way, to ease the pain of idleness and the memory of decay. I gaze into the doorway of temptation's angry flame. Every time I pass that way, I always hear my name. Then onward in my journey, I come to understand that every hair is numbered like every grain of sand. I have gone from rags to riches in the sorrow of the night, in the violence of a summer's dream, in the chill of a wintry light, in the bitter depths of loneliness, fading into space, in the broken mirror of innocence on each forgotten face. I hear the ancient footsteps like the motion of the sea. Sometimes I turn, there's someone there, other times it's only me. I am hanging in the balance of the reality of man, like every sparrow falling, like every grain of sand. In the 1983 song Neighborhood Bully, Dylan defends Israel's right to exist. The title bemoans Israel's and the Jewish people's historic treatment in the popular press. Events in the history of the State of Israel are referenced, such as the Six-Day War and Operation Opera, Israel's bombing of the Osirak nuclear reactor near Baghdad in 1981. Events in the history of the Israelites as a whole are mentioned, such as being enslaved by Rome, Egypt, and Babylon. Events in modern Jewish secular history are noted as well. In the year of the song's release, Dylan visited Israel again. This was his second visit, and was photographed at the Kotel wearing talit and tefillin. So I think it's safe to say that Dylan's love for and defense of Israel was at an all-time high, even though he has always denied that the song is about Israel or is political in any way. It's worth noting that in the last 2 months, YouTube took down the video of this song, claiming that it constituted hate speech. Reflection of the times we're now living in. So I have another video of an unknown group doing this song, since Dylan's was taken down, and I'll show the lyrics as well. I wish I knew how to fade out with these YouTube screen shares, but anyway, you get the idea. Is there any doubt in your mind that he's talking about Israel? I mean, it's just, and yet he denies it. It's crazy. Throughout his career, especially in his later years, Dylan wrote several songs about death. Knocking on Heaven's Door, Trying to Get to Heaven, Not Dark Yet. None of them have any particular Jewish connection, in my opinion, but are somewhat spiritual. And I decided, in the interest of time, not to do all of those songs. But in his 1988 album, Down in the Groove, it contains the poet-prophet's musing on the end of life, entitled Death is Not the End. It's built on the theology that the soul lives on after one's passing, a very Jewish idea, and mentions the tree of life as well. This lovely rendition is by Carl Brummel.
And when you're lonely and you haven't got a friend, just remember that death is not the end. And all that you've held sacred falls down and does not mend. Just remember that death is not the end. Not the end, not the end. Just remember that death is not the end. When you're standing on the crossroad that you cannot comprehend, just remember that death is not the end. And all your dreams have vanished, and you don't know what's up then. Just remember that death is not the end. Not the end, not the end. Just remember that death is not the end. The storm clouds gather around you and heavy rain descend. Just remember that death is not the end. And there's no one there to comfort you with a helping hand to lend. Just remember that death is not the end. Not the end. Not the end. Just remember that death is not the end.
I'm cutting that one short in the interest of time because we're getting towards the end of our hour and I've still got one more song I want to do. I'd like to close with an upbeat feeling, musically at least. Dylan's 1989 album, Oh Mercy, includes what may be considered his take on the Kabbalistic notion that the world is broken and in need of tikkun, or repair. And everything is broken. While the lyrics reflect a certain amount of despair, we can take them as a call towards tikkun olam, the repairing of the world, the work that we must all do to help repair this world. We need the screen. Broken lines, broken strings, broken threads, broken strings, broken idols, broken heads, people sleeping in broken beds. Ain't no use not jiving, ain't no use joking. Everything is broken. Broken bottles, broken plates, broken switches, broken gates, broken dishes, broken parts. Streets are filled with broken hearts. Broken words never meant to be spoken. Everything is broken. Seems like every time you stop and turn around, something else just hit the ground. Broken cutters, broken saws, broken buckles, broken laws, broken bodies, broken bones, broken voices on broken phones. Take a deep breath, feel like you're choking. Everything is broken. Every time you even go off someplace, things fall to pieces in my face. Broken heads on broken plows, broken treaties, broken vows, broken pipes, broken tools, people bending all those broken rules. Hound dog howling, bullfrog croaking. Everything is broken. Well, we're a few months early, but we can say happy birthday, Bob. Great milestone of 80 years. Ad 120 till 120. So we have a few minutes for questions. Let me see if there are any in the chat room.
So, Cantor, while you're looking for questions, my husband, Gabe Stern, has a Bob Dylan story he'd like to tell quickly.
Oh, that'd be great.
Go ahead, Gabe.
Well, really, just a couple of comments. One, we had the opportunity a few years ago to see a play called North Country Fair by an Irish playwright who was graciously given the permission to use the whole Dylan songbook and put together this musical, and it was absolutely fabulous. If you ever get a chance to see it, I'd highly recommend it.
Do you mean Girl from the North Country?
That's the name of one of his songs, and that was the name of the play.
Girl from the North Country.
In Duluth, Minnesota, in the Depression, and he uses
Yeah.
Dylan's music to create the story of these people desperate in the Depression, living in a rooming house, and the owners of the rooming house. I won't go into it any further than that, just to make note of it.
No, it's.
The other thing,
I've seen part of it on video, and it's really great. And the music is available on Spotify and probably other streaming services. Fabulous, fabulous work.
Interpretation and repurposing of his songs.
Yeah.
Which I think speaks to the versatility of the lyrics and what's behind the songs.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to offer is that my mother was from that Hibbing area. There's really a little tri-town area, Hibbing, Evelyn, and Virginia, Minnesota.
Wow.
And there was, from what I understand, a very vibrant Jewish community there, even through the 50s until the 60s. My mother talked about going to synagogue with her father in Virginia, and they'd go to Hibbing and Evelyn as well. They had a traveling rabbi who had a circuit and went to all three of these, and also served as a mohel. My mother went to high school with Bob Dylan's parents. And I learned that one day when the phone rang at the house, and I was in my early 20s. And I heard the conversation went something like, "Your son, Bob Dylan, well, why isn't his name Zimmerman like yours?" and
No.
I guess my mother had dated Bob's father in high school until my grandmother put a stop for it for some reason. So, but anyway, it's a vibrant Jewish community, so he did have Jewish, real Jewish chops from that community. And the only other thing I'll say is that as my mother's cousins who still lived in that area when I was growing up came through, after that phone call, I always quizzed them about, did they know Bob Dylan? And all I heard about is how terrible his voice was at his bar mitzvah.
That's great. Thank you, Gabe. That's a great stories. Daniel, did you have a question?
Yes. First, I just want to say that was absolutely fabulous.
Thank you.
Your renditions were intelligible. It made me appreciate the poetry. I never understood why he got a Nobel Prize. Now I do, or have a better sense. It was fabulous. Question, what you led me to want is, what would you recommend as a good biography of him? And the second question is, why did he get guttural later in life? He drove me crazy with my aging ears. I couldn't understand a blinking word. We heard him 20-some years ago at the Garden Theater, and I said, I'm never going to hear him again. Was that intentional, the gutturalness? And if you can think of a bio, that would be great.
I don't remember the name of it. There was one I read years ago. I mean, I'm going back probably 30 years when I read it, so I'm sure there are more up-to-date ones by now. I really don't know. Probably the best work is his own Chronicles Part 1, an autobiography. Would probably be a great way to go. In fact, funny thing is, Spotify just put up somebody reading his Chronicles, but the only problem is it's in German, which I'm not fluent enough to understand, but anybody who knows German can tune in and listen to that biography. As far as why his voice became guttural, I attribute it mostly to age and smoking, and God knows what else he's put in his body through the years. Excuse me. I doubt if he's done much in the way of vocal technique study, as many of us have, and I don't think he really cares. I think in some cases he put it on, intentionally, especially in his earlier years in the 60s, just to get that biting tone in his voice. But in the last 20 years, it's been really tough. In fact, his latest album, called Rough and Rowdy Ways, his voice is actually clearer than it was in the early 2000s. It's very interesting. So maybe he has done some study. Maybe he's held off on the cigarettes. Maybe his own brand of bourbon has improved his voice. Who knows?
Can you trust the Chronicles? Can you trust the Chronicles if he denied that song was about Israel?
Good question. Good question. I don't know. I haven't read it. I'll be honest, but any of the works out there are probably worth trying.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or?
That was fabulous.
Thank you, Myrna. Thank you.
It's terrific. And I wondered if you ever thought about doing a similar program on Leonard Cohen.
Actually, I did one at the Emmanuel a few years ago. I think it was either right after he died.
I'm still here.
Yeah, I know. Different Leonard Cohen. I noticed that for our first service together, Leonard. But yeah, I could think about doing that as my next Jedi talk, if you like. I could rerun that.
Thank you so much.